In the last video, I built this insane mega base. Now today, to go along with it, I'm going to be building 3 incredible farms, starting with the smallest and simplest, and then working my way up to the largest and most complex farm, which is going to be an autocrafter, which I've spent 6 months designing myself. So let's start with the first farm, which is going to be an insane potion brewer. So the first thing I need to do is gather all the resources to build this potion brewer. So let's run through it super quickly. First, I grabbed a shulker box of redstone. Then I got some empty shulker boxes and filled them with hoppers. Next I got some glass. Then I got some light blue, orange, yellow and lime wool, 9 stacks of each. Then I grabbed 2 shulker boxes of stone, took them to my super smelter and turned them into smooth stone. Weirdly though, 2 stacks didn't come through, so something must be broken. Luckily I'm building a giant super smelter later on in the video, so keep watching for that. Next I got some observers. Then I got some redstone torches and some comparators. Next some cyan and pink wool. After that I headed to the ice farm to craft 3 stacks of blue ice, which took ages. Then I got droppers, target blocks and powered rails. I'm still very new to this storage system as I only built it last episode, and I'm still trying to learn where everything is, so it's taken me so much longer to gather all the resources. But it is easier to find items because they're in much simpler groups than they were before. Anyway, then I got some barrels, white concrete and smooth stone slabs. And now I'm back at the wool farm for grey, green and purple wool. You can tell it's a proper redstone build when I'm gathering all this wool. Next I got some composters and some activator rails. After that I used a stone cutter to make cut copper because you get more that way. Next I need to craft copper bulbs, so I got some oxidized copper, redstone dust and some blaze rods. I also got some extra blaze rods so that I can add blaze powder into the brewing stands later. I haven't used these much before, so I'm excited to see how they work. Then I got a few stacks of white wool. The next item I need is oxidized cut copper stairs, but I don't have nearly enough oxidized copper. So instead I'm going to use weathered copper to craft the stairs and then place them all out to oxidize. Next I got some sticky pistons, rails, oak signs, stone bricks and then some stone brick walls. Next I need to craft brewing stand, so I got blaze rods and stone. Then I remembered you need cobblestone, not stone, so now I crafted them properly. Then I got some note blocks, redstone lamps, red wool, honeycomb. Then I crafted some copper blocks and cut copper and waxed them both. Then some obsidian, sea lanterns, iron trapdoors, stone brick stairs, black stone buttons, smooth quartz stairs, soul sand and emerald blocks. Next I need to make some cakes, so I turned sugarcane into sugar. Then I got wheat, eggs and milk and crafted them all together to make loads of cakes. Then I got some pumpkins. Next I needed regular copper bulbs, but I was too lazy to craft them, so I just took them out of the item filter. Then I waxed all the bulbs to stop them from oxidizing. Next I got some dispensers and crafted some iron ingots into blocks. After that I got some glass panes, quartz slabs, I crafted some copper into slabs, then I waxed the slabs, and once again I'm too lazy to craft crafters, so I just took them out of the item filter again. But later on for the final farm, I'm going to need to craft quite a lot of crafters. And now for the last few items, I got some levers, detector rails, gold blocks, lecterns, oak pressure plates, and finally, polished diorite. And now the only item I'm waiting on is for all these stairs to oxidize. And there we go, after 2 hours everything's oxidized, and I've now got all the resources to build the farm. So, here are all the resources, and I'm going to be building it over there, inside that orange box. I'm going to be building all of the farms in this video here, because this is super close to my base, and all of these farms are really important. It's a super complex machine, and if you want to build it yourself, it's linked below in the description. So now, let's get on and build it. And that is the farm done. It looks super cool, and remember, this is only the smallest farm of the video. It's super complicated inside and out, and I'll explain how it all works and what all the lights and buttons do in a little bit. But first I need to light the portal, then I need to grab warp stairs and sea lanterns, then I'm going to build a corresponding portal in the nether, and build a path linking up to it. Then I'm going to head back to my base and grab a load of empty shulker boxes. Now if I head through the portal, it links perfectly, and then I can load up all those empty shulker boxes into the machine. And when the machine's finished brewing, it's going to load the potions into these shulker boxes. But before I test the machine, I need to fill it up with all the items to actually make these potions. So first I'm going to get glass bottles and blaze powder. So if I head to the end, I can then go to the storage system for my gravity block duper, and grab 10 shulker boxes of sand. 10 shulker boxes should be enough to keep this machine going for ages. It only takes a few bottles to get it started, but to fully fill the machine, it takes loads, and that's what I'm trying to do. So, I took all of that sand to the super smelter and turned it all into glass. And now that it is glass, I'm going to craft it all into bottles. And as I was crafting the bottles, I've seen that the smooth stone from earlier has come through. It must have been that one of the furnaces was out of fuel or something. But anyway, now as you can see, I've got all of the glass bottles. So next, I'm going to head to the blaze farm. What I'm doing is taking the blaze rods and crafting them into powder. Just like with the glass bottles, I want 10 shulker boxes full. And I've not quite got enough at the moment, so I'll see you when I do. And there we go, now I've crafted all the blaze powder I could possibly need. Because each powder can brew multiple potions anyway, I'm going to have enough here to brew like 1,000,000 potions. So anyway, let's take all of them to the machine. And now I'm going to start loading it into the barrels. The glass bottles go into this one, and the blaze powder goes into this one. As you can see, it's getting sucked up super fast. It will take a while to do, but I'll slowly load all 10 shulker boxes of both in. Now before we do test it, there's one more thing to do. You see all these item frames on the wall? They're all the items I need so that I can brew every single potion. And if the redstone lamp is off, that means there isn't any of that item in the machine. So, to be able to actually brew potions, I need to load up the machine with all of these different items. And just to be safe so that I never run out, I'm going to grab 9 stacks of every single item that this smelter is going to need. So let's start gathering all the resources to fill it. First, I grabbed a load of redstone from my base, then I headed to the raid farm, and there I got loads of gunpowder, and then loads of glowstone. Now, I'm not going to bore you with me gathering all the items, so let's quickly cut to once I've got them all. And there we go, it took a while, but here is everything I'm going to need to fill up the machine. So now I can take them over and start loading everything in. When I load the items into the chest, they get sent over to this dropper. It then dispenses the items into this water stream. It takes them over to this item sorter, which then sorts them out into what items they are. And then it stores them in chests, ready for when I need to use them. As you can also see, all the empty glass bottles I loaded in earlier have been filled with water and distributed around the machine to all the different brewing stands. Now if we head back into the control room, you can see the lights show which items are in stock and which items I don't have. So let's wait for all of the items to be fully loaded into the machine. And there we go, now everything's fully loaded in, I can test this machine. So, this book here lets you choose which potion you want to brew. So whichever page you leave the book on is which potion it will brew. As you can see, some pages have 2 potions, one from 1.21 and one from an older version. If you want to brew the 1.21 potions, you have to turn this bulb on. Now that I've selected the potion I want, I can also add effects, like duration and splash, by turning these bulbs on. And then once I'm happy with all the settings, I press this button to start the brewing. So once you've selected a potion to brew, the correct items get taken out of these chests and then dispensed. Then those items are distributed into the correct brewing stand. The way this machine can brew so quickly is that each brewing stand does one step of the brewing. So for example, one brewing stand makes the potion fire resistance, and then the next brewing stand adds splash, and the one after that adds duration. So it just quickly puts the potions in, just as it's about to finish brewing, so that it can then brew super fast. And then once the potions have all been made, they get dispensed and sent up. And then they're all loaded into shulker boxes, ready for me to take. Wow, that was super quick. It brewed a whole shulker box of potions in less than a minute. This machine is going to be super useful for getting all the potions that I need. It's so cool that this farm can brew anything I want. It's going to be super useful in my world. But anyway, that's the first farm completed. So next, I'm going to be building a super smelter that's 5 times faster than my old one. But before I do, I'm going to build a little XP farm, one of the new ones that uses the infested potion, because I haven't built one yet, and having a little one close to my base is going to come in very useful. As I said, it's really small, so I'm going to super quickly gather all the resources that I need to build it. And there we go, that's everything I'm going to need. So I'm just going to build it over here, next to the brewer. By the way, while I am building it, if you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. And there we go, it's only small, but it's going to be very powerful. So it's going to work by using the infested potion to spawn silverfish, which I'm then going to take out to get the XP. But to spawn the silverfish, I'm going to need allays. Luckily, I've already got a few, but I'm going to need to breed way more. So I'm going to get on and breed them all, and then put them all into the machine. Also, I did not know that the third-person camera could go through glass. There we are, all the allays are in, but to actually run the machine, I'm going to need splash potions of infesting. Luckily, quite recently, I built a brewer. So if I select the potion in the book, turn on the 1.21 lamp, then if I select to add splash, and start brewing, there we go, we've got a full sugar box full. So if I just take all those potions and load them into the chest of the XP farm, then when I press this button it should dispense potions, and now every time that the LAs take damage, they spawn a silverfish. As you can see, it works really well and is getting me loads of XP. Annoyingly though, it is super loud. And now let's get to work on the next farm, which is actually going to be the super smelter. So I'm going to build it over here, next to the cobblestone farm. And you can see by this outline just how big it's going to be. It's going to be bigger than the other 3 farms combined. And the final farm, the Auto Crafter, is going to be even bigger than that. So let's head to my base so that I can start gathering the resources. The first thing I need is powered rails, but I've not got enough gold, so I need to head to the gold farm and grab a sugar box of gold blocks. Then I'm going to head to the raid farm and grab a sugar box of redstone. Now that I've got both of them, I'm going to craft loads of powered rails. It feels really bad to use up so many gold blocks on just crafting rails. Now that all those are crafted, I headed to my iron farm at spawn, and spawn's looking a bit dead, so maybe in the next episode, we'll upgrade it. Anyway, enough of that, then I headed over to my wood farm and crafted chests, and then I combined the chests and the iron I got earlier to craft hoppers. This wood farm is really good for getting every single type of wood, but it can't get mass amounts of wood for when I need to craft thousands of chests. So we'll fix that next episode too. Then I headed to the end and grabbed some sugar boxes of light blue concrete and some sugar boxes of sand. And then I took all that concrete powder to the concrete converter to craft it into proper concrete blocks. And there we go, I've got all the concrete blocks. Now I'm going to take all the sand I got and smelt it into glass. Now that it's glass, I'm going to take it over to my flower farm. And now I'm going to use these flowers to craft light blue dye and dye the glass light blue. And there we go, all the glass has been dyed. Now that's done, I headed to the cobblestone farm to craft an entire sugar box of furnaces. That shows you just how fast this machine is going to be able to smelt, with just the sheer amount of furnaces I actually need to build it. Now they're all crafted, I headed over to the clay farm, and I grabbed a sugar box of clay blocks. A sugar box of blocks. Then I smelted all those clay blocks and turned them into terracotta. Now I'm back at the flower farm again to get more light blue dye, and as I'm sure you expected, I turned the terracotta into light blue terracotta. And now that all the terracotta's been dyed, I need to take it back to my super smelter and smelt it again to turn it into glazed terracotta. And now that I've got that, that's all the resources I'm going to need a lot of. So I'm just going to quickly gather all the other materials that I just need a few of, so that then we can get to work building it. There we go, now I've got all the items I'm going to need to build the super smelter. There's something so satisfying about having a sugar box full of items. I don't know what it is, but I really like it. And if you think this is a lot of items, for the auto crafter that I'm going to be building after this, I need 100,000 items. But anyway, before I can build that, I need to actually build this. So let's get working on it. And there we are, finally it's completed. As I said before, this super smelter has 5 times as many furnaces as my old one, so it should be so much faster. I can't wait to test it. But as usual, before I do all that, I need to link up the nether portal. So if I light this one, and then I build one on the nether roof, and then I light that one, if I hop through, they link perfectly. Next, I need to actually get something to smelt. So I'm going to grab something that I smelt about 50 times an episode. So I've headed to the end, and I've grabbed loads of sand. Unlike my old super smelter, where you needed to press a button to get it started, with this one, all you need to do is load the sugar boxes into the chest, and it immediately starts working. So I'm going to give you a simple explanation of how this farm works. When the sugar boxes are loaded in, it splits them into 2. So half go into one hopper minecart, and half go into another. Then, once these hopper minecarts are full of sugar boxes, they get released. Then the hopper minecart puts one sugar box into each module, and there's 5 modules on each side. Then the sugar box full of items goes into a sugar box unloader, and all of the items get taken out and put into minecarts. Then, once these minecarts are full of items, they get released and they put one item into every single furnace. And then, when these items go into the furnace, they get instantly smelted. Now, to fuel these furnaces, I've modified the smelter design. Rather than having to input fuel like coal, I've instead chose to use carpet dupers. I only use carpet dupers for fuel, not to ever get the item. So once the carpets are made, they then get picked up by a hopper minecart, and then this hopper minecart distributes them into all the furnaces. And then once the sand is finished smelting, another minecart gets released to go and pick everything up. And then once the minecart's picked everything up, it gets unloaded, and then all the smelted items, in this case glass, gets loaded into a shulker box. Then once the shulker boxes are full, they get broken and sent up to me in the control room. And there we are, super quickly, all that sand has been smelted and turned into glass. This farm is so much faster than my old one, it's going to save me so much time. In fact, it was so fast and I enjoyed using it so much, I'm going to head to the cobblestone farm, grab loads of shulker boxes of cobblestone, and test the farm again. Now, you may notice with all these farms, I put shulker boxes in and I get shulker boxes out, and that is all part of my big plan to make this world super fast and super easy to use. With every farm I just put shulker boxes in and get shulker boxes out, and I never need to touch the items, which is also the whole reason my brand new storage system I built in the last video has a shulker box loader for every single item in the game. It just makes it so much easier to do big projects like building a giant autocrafter. Now this whole philosophy of putting shulker boxes in and getting shulker boxes out was what made designing my autocrafter so incredibly hard. Unloading the shulker boxes is easy, crafting the items is easy, reloading the shulker boxes with the correct amount of items is ridiculously hard, but we'll get onto that later. And now there we go, all the cobblestones come out. This farm is super fast, super cool and works super well. The autocrafter that I spent 6 months designing myself. This farm uses 5 stacks of the autocrafter block. But hang on one sec, before I do that I need to name some fish. So I headed over to the fish farm and did the logical thing of grabbing loads of axolotls. And then I caught loads of tropical fish and other stuff, which I'm going to name. Now I've got everything I need to head over to my brand new aquarium which I built in the last video. Now if you're a regular viewer, I'm sure you know what I'm on about. But if you're new, you might be confused, so let me explain. Every single video, I tell people that if they comment on the video, I will name a fish after them in the next video. And in the last video, I also said that if you put the word axolotl at the start of your comment, I'd name an axolotl after you. And that's what all these axolotls are for. They've all been named after people who commented on the last video. I only had 6 axolotls in my last video, and now I've got over 20. The axolotl tank is looking so much better. Just look at them all swimming around. Now I'm going to place all the fish. And as I said, these are all named after the other people who commented on my last video. Now, if you want to get yourself a fish named after you in my world, all you need to do is comment down below. You can comment anything you like. And whilst you're down there commenting something, please could you subscribe, because this is only a small channel and it really does help. Thank you so much. Last episode, I built this brand new aquarium to keep all the fish in, because the little glass tank they were in before was just too small. There are already over 500 fish in here, and one day I'm hoping to have these tanks super full of thousands of fish, all named after people who commented on my videos. So remember, don't forget to comment so you can be a fish too. And while I'm placing these fish, I just want to let you know, if you want to get daily updates of what I'm doing each day, and sneak peeks and behind the scenes of future videos, go join my Discord, it's linked in the description. And now that's all of the fish from everyone who commented on the last video. Thank you so much everyone. I really do appreciate the support, it means the world to me. As I said, this is only a small channel and it really does help. And look at that, you can see all the fish swimming around in the tanks. This aquarium is one of the coolest builds I've ever made, and I'm super happy with it. And now, let's move on from one of my favourite builds to my favourite redstone machine that I've ever designed. As I said, this has all been fully designed by me, apart from a few bits like shulker box loaders and unloaders, which have been designed by other people. I am super proud of what I've managed to design. At its fastest, it can craft over 100,000 items an hour. But it takes almost 100,000 items to actually build. So let's get on with that first. By the way, if you want to build one of these in your own world, I'll be explaining how to do that, how to use the machine, and how it actually works later on in the video. So keep watching. You can see behind me just how big it's going to be. It's going to be bigger than all the farms I've built so far combined. So now I need to gather the 100,000 items I'm going to need to build it. And the first one of those is going to be red concrete. So I headed to the end, and then I grabbed all the concrete powder I'm going to need. Then I took it all over to the concrete converter, and you guessed it, I then got to work converting it all into red concrete. Now, some of you might be wondering why I spent months designing my own autocrafter when I could have just used someone else's design. Well, there are a few reasons, but mostly it's because they were either too big or too complicated to work. There we go, now all the concrete is converted. That's the biggest item out of the way. So let's take it all over to where I'm going to be building it. I'm going to set it up here on top of the super smelter as a little temporary base. Next, I'm heading back to the end, but this time to grab a load of sand. Then I'm taking all that sand to my brand new super smelter and turning it all into glass. There we go, all the glass has come through. Then if I head to spawn, I can go to the iron farm, which gets me poppies. I'm then going to use those poppies to dye all the glass red. And there we go, now I've dyed all the glass. Then I headed to the raid farm again to grab some shulker boxes full of redstone dust. Next, I headed to the wood farm and craft a load of chests. I'm just using random logs I've got to craft these chests, because I really need a mass wood farm. Then I took all those chests to the iron farm and crafted them all into hoppers. Crafting these 4 shulker boxes of hoppers took me over 30 minutes. If only I had a machine that could do it for me. But we're not quite there yet. Then I headed back to my base to grab some redstone and some gold so I can craft powered rails. And now I'm at the ice farm again to craft some packed ice. Then I headed back to the wood farm to craft composters. The reason I need so many of these is that they go on top of the hoppers to reduce lag. After that, I headed to the raid farm again to get more redstone. Then I headed to the bartering farm to get some quartz. Next, I headed to the cobblestone farm for, you guessed it, some cobblestone, and then I grabbed some stone from my base. And then I used all those resources to craft repeaters, then comparators, then some observers, and finally some redstone torches. Now that's all the items I'm going to need a lot of, so I'm going to quickly gather everything else and we'll cut back when I have everything. And now I've got all the items I need to build it. As you can see, it's going to be massive. So let's stop wasting time and let's build it. And finally, it's finished. I've had a lot of issues with building it, and not just with time-lapses corrupting. Now I didn't know this, but if you rotate the schematic, everything breaks because of how rails connect. I learned that one the hard way. That's something I probably should have tested, but oh well. So, if you do build this in your world, never rotate the schematic, it will break everything. Now, speaking of, if you do want to download the schematic for the Autocrafter, it's on my Discord, which is linked in the description. Go check it out, it's such an awesome machine. Now, before we test it and I show you how it all works, we need to link up the nether portal. So, if I light this one, build one on the nether side, build the path, and then light the portal. Before I go through it though, I need to get items to actually test the farm with. So, I've headed to the wood farm once again to craft a load of sticks, and then I went to the spider farm to grab a load of string. I wonder what I'm going to craft with these. So, we now head through the portal, it will take us into the control room. So, this is it. I'm going to explain how the control room works, one button at a time, starting clockwise at the back and working my way around. So this first chest is for overflow empty shulker boxes. If this light up here comes on, it means you need to empty the chest or the system will back up with shulker boxes. The next one along is the filler items chest. This is where all of the filler items are stored. The same with this one, if the light comes on, you need to empty the chest. But in reality though, you should never need to. So the maximum you're ever going to need is 9 shulker boxes of filler items. I've just filled this chest up to demonstrate. So really, you should never need to empty the chest anyway. I'll explain what these filler items do a little bit later on. But just to let you know, the system is set up to use raw cod as its filler item, because you can't craft anything with raw cod. And I wouldn't recommend trying to switch it for a different item, because there are so many hoppers and stuff that have it in, and if you miss just one, it could break everything. Moving on now, this is the empty shulker box input. So if the light is on, it means you need to put empty shulker boxes in. Once again, this is one of those lights that rarely comes on. It'll only really come on if you're doing a craft like, for example, slime blocks to slime balls, where 1 slime block equals 9 slime balls, so your crafting output is more than your input. But for most things, like dispensers, you put more items in than you actually get out. So therefore you're going to be putting more shulker boxes into the machine than you're going to be taking out with your crafted items. If that makes sense. Now the items in this chest are some of the most important in the farm. These are shulker boxes full of hopper minecarts. Once again, if the light comes on, fill the chest. Hopper minecart is what distributes items all around the farm, so they're super important. Unfortunately, I did find here and there you do lose minecarts, so the number of shulker boxes will slowly go down, so just make sure you're keeping an eye on this chest and topping it up, because if you run out of copper minecarts, the whole system will unfortunately break. These 3 lights here are all progress lights, to show you which steps have been completed. This light shows when the distribution has happened, so when the items have been distributed into the crafters. This light shows when the crafting has happened, so when the crafters have crafted the items. And this light shows when the collection has happened, so when the shulker box loaders have filled up with items. These lights turn on once that's happened for the first time, and they'll only reset and turn off when you do your next craft. So when the system's not in use, these lights will just be on. These chests here are all for non-stackable item input, for items such as bows when you're crafting dispensers. For all of the item inputs, everything needs to be in a shulker box, so in this case the shulker box will need to be full of bows. Don't ever just put the items in by themselves, as it will break the machine. Now, if you are crafting with a non-stackable item, in the crafting slot that non-stackable item is meant to go, you put a filler item. So for example, when you're crafting dispensers, the bows go in slot number 5. So you'd put a filler item in slot number 5. But I'll explain a little bit more about that in a bit. Also, one more thing to note about non-stackables, always make sure you're inputting the same amount as you are for other items. So to craft 1 shulker box of dispensers, you need 64 full shulker boxes of bows. Now, moving on to the main controls, this note block lets you control whether the completed bell is on or off. The completed bell comes on once all the items have finished crafting. Even if you turn it off for one craft, when you do your next craft, it'll automatically turn itself back on. So this is just here so that you can stop the bell once it's finished crafting, because the bell can get quite annoying. This light here shows when lost items are being loaded into shulker boxes, which happens when you clean the crafters. For example, if you put the wrong craft in or the machine messes up, you can press clean crafters and it empties all of the items out of the crafters and will load them into shulker boxes, and this light just lets you know that that's happening. This is the crafting output light, and it comes on when there's items in the crafting output chest, as you can see here. So, if all the items haven't come through into that chest and the crafting completed bell is on, wait a few minutes, and then if the items still haven't come through, press this button. What this button does is it breaks all the shulker boxes in the shulker box loaders in case some of them haven't loaded properly and are only half full. These shulker boxes will then come into the crafting output chest. Some of them will be empty, but some of them might have the items you need. But if that doesn't work and you're still missing items, press the clean crafters button, which I'll explain in a minute. This light here shows when shulker box loading is in progress for crafted items. It's pretty self-explanatory and just does what it says on the tin. This light here shows when cleaning is in progress, so when you press clean crafters, this light will come on to show you if it's still cleaning or not. This chest here is the cleaning output chest, so all of the items that were cleaned out of the crafters and then loaded into shulker boxes will come into this chest, and the light just tells you when there's items in the chest. I know these controls are in a bit of a random order, but it's just because that's the order that I built them in, so that's the order they got placed in, and because of how complicated the wiring is behind this wall, it would be really annoying to change. So I'm just going to not bother and leave it. So, this light here shows you when crafting is in progress. Again, quite self-explanatory. Once this light and the shulker loading light have come off, that's when the completed bell turns on. So, this button here lets you switch between crafting regular and crafting non-stackable items. So, a regular item would be a piston or a chest, and a non-stackable item would be a bow. So make sure, before you start crafting, you pick what you're crafting. This button is to clean the crafters. What it does, if there are any lost items in the crafters, such as if you inputted the wrong items in, it will take those items out and load them into shulker boxes. And then those shulker boxes will go into the cleaning output chest. This light will just show you when the cleaning is happening. So, you turn this light on if you're crafting with non-stackables, not crafting non-stackables, crafting with them. So, if you're crafting dispensers for examples, you need bows, so you're crafting with non-stackables. But if you're crafting bows, you're not crafting with non-stackables, you're crafting non-stackables. I know, it does get a bit confusing. For crafting with non-stackables, remember to put those non-stackables in the non-stackable input that I showed earlier. And that's basically how you know when to turn this light on or not. If you're putting items in those chests, then turn it on. And remember to do that before you start crafting. By the way, this light will automatically turn off once the craft is finished. Next is kind of the main button. This is the button to start crafting. Now, when you press this, all the items in the chest will be sucked into the machine and start crafting. So, before you press start crafting, make sure you selected whether you're crafting non-stackables or regular items, and if you're crafting with non-stackables or not. Another thing, only do one craft at a time. So, before you start a second craft, make sure you've got all of the items out from the first craft before you do. Also, you can't start a craft when the machine is cleaning. Another thing that I learned from experience is never leave the control room when the machine is running. And it's not just if anything gets unloaded, everything will break, which it will, but also, if you leave the control room and accidentally bump into a minecart and send it moving in a different direction, it will bump every other minecart and it will cause absolute chaos. Trust me, I did it once and I never want to do it again. It is a real pain to clean up. Another rule is only put full shulker boxes into the input. With the regular input, that's shulker boxes that contain only 64 stackables. If they aren't in stacks of 64, again, it'll break the machine. And with the non-stackables, it's just a shulker box full of non-stackable items. So, these crafters here show you which slot is which and where you need to put your items into. I would always recommend using the crafting table to check the recipe that you want to craft before you actually do. Because if you put the items in the wrong order, it can either craft something completely random or not craft anything at all. And if this does happen, just press the clean crafter light and wait for it to clean all the crafters for you. So, the colour coding in the crafter corresponds to the colours above each of the 9 input chests. So, to use each input slot, you need to use the slot before. So, to use slot 2, you also need to use slot 1. If you want to put an item in slot 5, you need to fill slot 4, 3, 2 and 1 as well. Otherwise, the craft won't happen properly. So, if you're crafting an item, let's say a sword, that needs you to put items in slot number 1, slot number 4 and slot number 7, in slot number 2, 3, 5 and 6, you need to put a shulker box of filler items, or the equivalent number of shulker boxes, the number of shulker boxes you're putting in. So, if you're putting in 5 shulker boxes of diamonds, you also need to put 5 shulker boxes of filler items into the right slot. I know this might be quite confusing, so let me explain it to you. If I was going to craft a bow, slot 1 would be filler, slot 2 would be stick, slot 3 would be string, slot 4 would be stick, slot 5 would be filler, slot 6 would be string, slot 7 would be filler, slot 8 would be a stick, and slot 9 would be a string. Now, remember, always put the same number of shulker boxes into each slot. So, in this case, I'm going to put 1 shulker box of each into each slot, but if instead I wanted to craft double, I'd put 2 shulker boxes of every item into each slot, and 2 shulker boxes of filler items into each slot. Just before I give it a test, I understand this machine is super complex, so if you do go on to build it yourself, if you have any problems or any questions, just message me on Discord or any of my other socials. But now, if I load all my items in, then I need to switch it to crafting non-stackables because I'm crafting bows, which are non-stackable. Next, I'm going to check all the other settings are correct, and then, with my fingers crossed, I can press start. I'm super excited, but also super nervous because this is months worth of work. So let's hope it does work. By the way, the redstone is super messy and inefficient, but it works, okay? I'm sure someone who is actually good at redstone could make this machine about a tenth of the size, but I'm proud that I've managed to make it and it actually works. Well, at least I hope it does, so let's get on with testing it. So, I'm now going to try and give you a bit of a simplified explanation of how it works. So, when you press start, the shulker boxes go into shulker box unloaders, and then those items get loaded into minecarts. When the minecart is full of 5 stacks of items, it's let go. The minecarts then unload their items into the crafters, and because there's 5 stacks of crafters and 5 stacks of items in each hopper minecart, it puts 1 in every crafter. The first minecart puts its item into slot 1, the second minecart puts its item into slot 2, the third minecart puts its item into slot 3, and so on, until the crafter's full of all the items. So, once all those items are in the crafters, other minecarts are released to remove all the filler items from them, as you can see happening right here. Then, once all the filler items removed, if I've got the recipe correct, the crafters can craft the items. Then, the items are stacked up into a pile. Then, once all the items are stacked up, they get released and sent along this water stream, where they then go down and can get picked up by minecarts. Each of these minecarts that picks up the item picks up exactly a stack, because they've got items that block the other slots. Then up here, when a minecart that has a stack of items goes through, it gets separated and then sent down to the counter. This machine counts up 27 minecarts, each of which have a stack of items, which is the perfect number of items to fill a shulker box. Then once all 27 minecarts have gone in and been stacked up together, they get released. Then they go along the tracks until they find an unoccupied shulker box loader. Then, once it detects the minecarts, it starts unloading the items from the hopper minecarts and loads them into the shulker box. And then once the shulker box is full, it gets broken and sent up to the control room. I've massively simplified that explanation of how it works, but that is the fundamentals. And now, because you can hear that bell, it means they've all finished crafting. So let's turn it off, because as I said, it gets really annoying. And as you can see, I've now got 64 shulker boxes in total, all full of bows. So now that I've got all those bows, I'm going to load them into the non-stackable item input chest, so that I can then craft them into dispensers. So to craft those dispensers, I headed to the raid farm and grabbed some redstone. Then I headed to the cobblestone farm to grab some cobblestone. Next, in my inventory, I organised all the shulker boxes into what order I was going to be putting them into the machine. Then I grabbed a shulker box of filler items to put in place of where the bows are meant to be going in the crafting recipe. Then I've just double checked the order. So it goes cobblestone, 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 cod as a filler item for the bows, cobblestone, cobblestone, redstone, cobblestone, which should mean if I put them in, they'll craft dispensers. So now if I put one shulker box into the corresponding slot, make sure the settings are right, so I need to turn it to crafting regular items, and then I need to change it to crafting with non-stackables. I'm going to double check all the bows are in, and fingers crossed, that should be everything. So let's hit start crafting. So the bows get unloaded out of the shulker boxes and go into this dropper. Then the dropper dispenses exactly 64 bows at a time. Those bows then get released and sent into the crafters. One goes into each crafter. These bows only go in after all the other items have gone in and then the fillet is removed. So these bows go in last so that they go in the right slot. As you can see here. Then, once all the items are in, the dispensers are crafted. And the bell's on, so you know what that means? We got one shulker box full of dispensers. I'm super happy that this machine actually worked, and I can't believe I made it all by myself. Remember, you can download the schematic to build it yourself on my Discord, or if you want, just have a mess around and see how it works. Also on my Discord, I do daily updates and behind the scenes on future videos, so go join the Discord and check it out. If you've enjoyed this video, click here to see how I built a storage system that can hold 1 billion items. Or click this other video to see how I built Minecraft's fastest guardian farm. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!